And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Sunday morning's flying weather graphic showing a band of marginal VFR here from about Adak eastward across the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, right on up to the North Gulf Coast here. Is kind of shifting, mostly pushing eastward here and a little bit to the north, and it extends down to the southeast coast there, with VFR up to the north, interior Alaska VFR all the way up to the Arctic coast, northern Bering Sea as well, and southward here to the Pribilofs. And then for the afternoon hours, we've got marginal VFR sliding on up into western Prince William Sound, covering most of the Kenai Peninsula there into Turnagain Arm. Otherwise, remainder of the inland areas here staying VFR. So marginal VFR for the North Slope, central eastern Arctic coast, marginal for the Panhandle, and now marginal VFR extending all the way out to Shimianatu with good VFR to the north. And then for Monday morning, some marginal VFR here pushing into the western Arctic coast down to about Kivalina, but staying north of the Bering Strait. And then still marginal VFR covering the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, up to Kodiak Island, and now retreating back down to the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula. So Prince William Sound becoming VFR again, as well as interior Alaska staying VFR as well up to the Arctic coast, and marginal VFR with areas of IFR for the Panhandle. And for Monday afternoon, a more widespread area of IFR now showing up over the southeast coast, with marginal VFR back to about Cape St. Elias, and VFR, southern central Alaska, all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast. Lowering conditions here back to the west up there, western Brooks Range marginal down into Shishmaref, Buckland, marginal VFR, and IFR now pushing in towards Point Lay on up to Wainwright, and starting to see some marginal VFR finally pushing into the far western Bering Sea or northwest areas, as well as the southwest Bering Sea. Marginal VFR here across the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula area on up to Kodiak Island. Passes tomorrow for the Brooks Range, Anaktuvuk, and Anigan. Another VFR day for both those passes. Lake Clark, Merrill, and Rainy, VFR. The entire Alaska range is opened. All the passes will be VFR tomorrow, as is Mentasta, Tanita. Portage, though, possibly seeing some marginal VFR in the increase, especially on the eastern entrance throughout the day, especially in the afternoon. Chilcoot and White holding VFR, but you'll notice clouds increasing, thickening, and lowering throughout the afternoon. And for the freezing levels at the surface, right up the east side of Kodiak Island there, cutting across Falls Pass, a little farther to the north out west there, 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the southern Panhandle. And this area warm air retreating westward there from what it was, is today, with 2,000 to 4,000 feet there over the western Aleutians. And from there, looking at icing free out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, as well as mainland Alaska here, but increasing moisture bringing a threat of some isolated moderate rime icing up into the Prince William Sound area, southern Kenai Peninsula, southern Kodiak Island. This area to the south just grazing the Alaska Peninsula. Main area to watch for some significant icing would be the central and southern southeast coast. And the jet stream here showing a trough extending from Mackenzie River Bay and Delta there southwestward into Bristol Bay. Strong northerly flow, 105 knots there for the western Arctic coast, diminishing to 70 knots out of the northeast there in the central Bering Sea. And then west-southwest flow, 65 knots along the North Gulf Coast and the northern Panhandle. 9,000 feet, pretty light winds here over the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, much of the central eastern interior. Band of stronger northeast winds, 40 increasing to 55 knots there across the Yukon Delta and Nunivak Island, and to about 60 knots there just south of the Pribilofs. Moving on to 9,000 feet, a couple of bands of 65 knot winds, one just south of the Alaska Peninsula out of the east, and northeast winds 65 knots there just along and off the southwest coast across the Nunivak Island, diminishing into the interior there. And increasing winds here off the coast of the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, still some considerable moderate mechanical turbulence here for the northern Panhandle and up into the coast mountains there, and also a bigger area of considerable moderate turbulence here coming out of the southwest interior, southward to the eastern Aleutians and the western Alaska Peninsula.